What happens when a young, fiery political voice goes head-to-head with a Hollywood legend on live TV? Total chaos. Karoline Leavitt didn't just challenge Robert De Niro, she obliterated him in front of millions. His reaction? Pure meltdown. This wasn't just a debate, it was a cultural takedown, and the internet exploded. You need to see this to believe it. It started like any other cable news segment, but what happened next? No one saw it coming. On a seemingly routine live broadcast, former Trump spokesperson and rising conservative firebrand Karoline Leavitt faced off with Hollywood legend Robert De Niro. What was supposed to be a calm debate about politics and celebrity influence spiraled into a viral explosion when Leavitt, with sharp words and laser focus, took direct aim at De Niro's recent anti-Trump rants. As the cameras rolled, she didn't hold back. "Robert, you're not speaking for America," she said, looking directly into the camera. "You're speaking for a Hollywood bubble that's out of touch with reality." That one line alone sent Twitter and other social media platforms into a meltdown. Within seconds, fans, critics, influencers, and political commentators were reacting to the moment in real time, calling it everything from a brutal truth bomb to the most savage live TV moment of the year. De Niro's face turned red. He tried to fire back, but the damage was already done. Leavitt's words cut deep, and the internet had already crowned her the winner before the segment even ended. Reaction clips, memes, and viral tweets started pouring in. Viewers couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. The usually unshakable De Niro, who had made a second career out of politically charged Hollywood speeches, suddenly looked stunned, caught off guard by someone half his age and twice as sharp in that moment. To understand how this moment reached such explosive levels, you have to rewind just a bit. Robert De Niro has been a longtime critic of Donald Trump, known for harsh public comments and fiery interviews. In one of his most recent sit-downs, he labeled Trump supporters as dangerous and declared that the U.S. was in a battle for its soul. His tone wasn't subtle, it was angry, accusatory, and, to many on the right, downright offensive. He accused conservatives of promoting extremism and undermining democracy, which triggered a massive backlash from political pundits, media outlets, and ordinary Americans who felt alienated by his Hollywood elite tone. Enter Karoline Leavitt. Young, confident, and clearly unafraid to take on even the most iconic names in showbiz, she had been gaining traction as a bold voice in conservative media. When it was announced that she would be appearing alongside De Niro on live TV, the internet was already buzzing with predictions. Most expected some fireworks, but not a complete and total takedown. From the moment the segment began, it was clear the energy was tense. De Niro opened with a long, dramatic monologue, accusing Trump and his supporters of spreading hate, misinformation, and neo-fascist rhetoric. He painted a dark picture of the country's future and insisted celebrities had a responsibility to speak out. The host barely managed to keep the discussion on track as De Niro grew more impassioned by the minute. Then came Leavitt's moment, and she seized it. Calm, direct, and razor-sharp, she responded not with emotion, but with precision. She questioned De Niro's credibility, saying that while he might be an accomplished actor, that didn't make him a spokesperson for America's working class. "When was the last time you actually sat down and listened to someone who doesn't live in Beverly Hills or work in the entertainment industry?" she asked. The studio fell silent. Even the host looked stunned. De Niro attempted to interrupt, but Leavitt kept going. "You say Trump supporters are dangerous, but what's really dangerous is a narrative that tries to silence half the country just because they don't agree with you." Her voice was steady, confident, and it resonated far beyond the studio. What followed was pure chaos on the internet. Within minutes, clips from the segment were being posted across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Hashtags like #Leavitt vs. De Niro, #Hollywood Meltdown, and #Caroline owned De Niro were trending nationwide. Supporters praised Leavitt for standing her ground, while critics of De Niro called the moment long overdue. Even some political moderates admitted they were surprised by how effectively she dismantled his argument. De Niro's reaction didn't help his case. According to multiple behind-the-scenes sources, he was furious after the broadcast ended. He reportedly stormed off the set, called the segment a setup, and refused to give post-show interviews. His team offered no comment, but the viral footage of his red-faced expression and stumbling rebuttal said more than words ever could. For Karoline Leavitt, the moment solidified her status as a rising conservative star. Her social media following exploded, media outlets rushed to book her for follow-ups, and even some mainstream commentators said she had won the internet. It wasn't just a television moment, it was a cultural flashpoint. In a world where celebrity opinions often dominate the conversation, Leavitt flipped the script. She reminded viewers that America is listening, and not just to Hollywood. This wasn't just a debate. It was a wake-up call. And millions of people were wide awake. To truly understand how this explosive moment between Karoline Leavitt and Robert De Niro went viral, you have to rewind just a bit and look at the events that led up to it. Robert De Niro, an undisputed legend in the film industry, is just as famous these days for his off-screen political tirades as he is for his on-screen performances. Over the past few years, De Niro has become one of Hollywood's loudest and most unapologetic critics of Donald Trump and the conservative movement. From awards show speeches filled with profanity to interviews where he passionately attacks Republican values, De Niro has made it clear, he sees Trump and his supporters as a threat to America. In a recent high-profile interview, De Niro once again turned heads and stirred controversy. He didn't hold back, labeling Trump supporters as dangerous and claiming that the country was in a battle for its soul. He warned of authoritarianism, fascism, and what he called the moral collapse of American democracy. While his fans praised him for speaking truth to power, a large number of viewers, including many in the conservative world, saw it differently. They saw it as another example of a Hollywood elite speaking down to regular Americans. The backlash came fast. Conservative commentators called him out for demonizing millions of hard-working citizens just because of their political views. Social media lit up with criticism, saying De Niro was out of touch, arrogant, and living in a fantasy world of wealth, privilege, and Hollywood groupthink. And that's where Karoline Leavitt entered the picture. A rising conservative voice, Leavitt has gained a reputation for being sharp, unfiltered, and completely unafraid to take on big names. She's young, still in her 20s, but don't let that fool you. She's a former White House staffer under President Trump, and since leaving Washington, she's been building her profile through cable news appearances, speeches, and digital media. Her no-nonsense approach and ability to speak clearly and confidently without getting rattled have made her a favorite among many on the right. So when it was announced that Karoline Leavitt and Robert De Niro would be appearing on the same live broadcast to discuss politics, media, and celebrity influence, viewers knew they were in for a fiery exchange. But even with those expectations, no one could have predicted what was about to happen. From the moment the show started, the tension was obvious. De Niro came out swinging, repeating many of the same points he made in his recent interview. He railed against Trump, warned about fascism creeping in, and insisted that it was the duty of artists and public figures to stand up for democracy. His tone was forceful, even aggressive. He talked about Trump supporters as if they were villains in a movie, dangerous, brainwashed, and completely beyond reason. But then it was Leavitt's turn to speak, and that's when the entire tone of the segment shifted. Leavitt, calm and composed, looked straight into the camera and fired back. She started by dismantling the idea that Hollywood celebrities speak for the American people. "Robert," she said, "you're not speaking for America. You're speaking for a Hollywood bubble that's out of touch with reality." The line hit like a lightning bolt. The studio went quiet, and even De Niro appeared taken aback. It was a rare moment when someone on live television challenged him so directly, and so effectively. She continued, pointing out the massive disconnect between elite celebrities and working-class Americans. She asked De Niro when was the last time he had actually stepped outside his gated world to talk with everyday citizens, truck drivers, small business owners, veterans, farmers. "You call them dangerous," she said, "but they're the backbone of this country." Her words struck a nerve, and the internet noticed. Within seconds, clips from the segment were making the rounds online. People couldn't believe how effortlessly Leavitt stood her ground, pushing back against one of the most iconic figures in entertainment. It wasn't just a debate, it was a statement. A message that Americans are tired of being lectured by people who don't live their lives, walk in their shoes, or share their struggles. De Niro tried to respond, but by then the momentum had shifted. The damage was done. Leavitt didn't shout, didn't insult, she simply used facts, common sense, and a clear voice. And in doing so, she completely flipped the script. The clip quickly went viral, sparking conversations across political lines. For many, it symbolized a larger cultural moment, one where the political elite and celebrity class are finally being held accountable by a new generation that refuses to back down. Karoline Leavitt didn't just debate Robert De Niro, she delivered a message that millions of Americans had been waiting to hear. And that's why the moment exploded the way it did. It wasn't just about one debate, it was about who really gets to speak for America. And that question is far from settled. It all unfolded in just minutes, but it felt like a heavyweight match on live television, raw, unscripted, and impossible to ignore. Robert De Niro, well known not only for his acting legacy but also for his loud and often controversial political opinions, came into the segment full of fire. Right from the start, he launched into a passionate rant about what he called the truth, democracy, and the looming threat of fascism in America. He painted a dark picture of the political landscape, claiming the country was teetering on the edge and that figures like Donald Trump were to blame. His voice was forceful, and at times, even angry. He barely let the host speak, dominating the conversation with long-winded statements and dramatic rhetoric. But across from him sat Karoline Leavitt, unshaken, calm, and watching him carefully. She didn't flinch. She didn't roll her eyes or react emotionally. Instead, she waited. And when the host finally turned to her, what happened next would send shockwaves across the internet. Leavitt didn't ease into her response. She went straight for the jugular, with precision and confidence. "Robert," she began, "you've had a legendary career in Hollywood. But making movies doesn't make you a moral authority on American politics." The studio suddenly felt quieter. There was a pause, a rare moment when even the most outspoken guests on live television didn't quite know what to say. She continued, addressing his doom-and-gloom rhetoric directly. "You're using fear tactics," she said bluntly. "You're painting half the country as villains just because they see the world differently than you do. That's not democracy. That's not tolerance. That's division." The line that truly struck a nerve came next. Looking De Niro dead in the eye, she asked, "When was the last time you stepped outside of Hollywood and actually listened to everyday Americans?" You could feel the weight of that question hit the room. Even the host, who had been struggling to maintain control of the segment, looked stunned. De Niro shifted in his seat. His expression tightened. He tried to interrupt, something about knowing plenty of real Americans, but Leavitt wasn't backing down. Her tone remained respectful but firm. "You're welcome to your opinion," she said, "but you don't get to shame millions of hard-working Americans just because they don't vote like you." It was a powerful moment, not loud or combative, but piercing and direct. That clip? It went viral within seconds. Viewers watching from home instantly grabbed their phones to record, clip, and share what they had just seen. Social media platforms exploded. On X, formerly Twitter, the hashtags #Leavitt vs De Niro, #LiveTV Showdown, and #Caroline Clapsback began trending. People across the political spectrum couldn't stop talking about it. Even those who didn't agree with Leavitt's politics admitted that she had handled herself with poise and strength, taking on one of Hollywood's biggest names without flinching. what made the moment even more powerful was the contrast. De Niro, emotional and fiery, came across to many as condescending and angry. Leavitt, in contrast, was measured, logical, and composed. The visual alone told a story, one of an established Hollywood figure lashing out and a rising political voice standing firm. Behind the scenes, sources later revealed that De Niro was furious after the broadcast. He reportedly stormed off the set, declined to speak with producers, and called the segment a setup. But there was no editing trick or ambush. It was live TV, and the world saw it in real time. Leavitt, meanwhile, didn't need to brag about the moment. Her actions spoke for themselves. She left the studio smiling, knowing she had just made an impact that would ripple far beyond that single interview. Her social media following skyrocketed. Conservative outlets praised her performance. Even some moderate commentators admitted that she had brought up fair points about elitism, celebrity influence, and the growing disconnect between mainstream media and the average American. What happened during that segment wasn't just a political exchange, it was a cultural moment. A younger generation challenging the old guard. A grassroots voice standing up to celebrity dominance. And more than anything, it was a reflection of where we are as a country, deeply divided, yes, but also deeply in need of real conversation, not lectures from the Hollywood hilltops. As millions watched and rewatched the clip, one thing became clear: Karoline Leavitt had not just held her own against Robert De Niro. She had flipped the narrative entirely. And in doing so, she reminded everyone watching that you don't have to be a movie star to make your voice heard. You just have to speak the truth, and speak it fearlessly. After the segment aired, the fallout was immediate and dramatic. Robert De Niro, the legendary actor who had once delivered Oscar-winning performances with grace and authority, was visibly rattled. According to multiple behind-the-scenes sources, he stormed off the set the moment the cameras stopped rolling. Crew members reportedly described him as furious, pacing back and forth, muttering about how the segment had gone off the rails. At one point, he allegedly called the producers irresponsible for allowing someone like her, referring to Karoline Leavitt, to appear on the same panel. He accused them of creating a circus, blindsiding him, and undermining the so-called integrity of the conversation. His team refused to give any public statement about the incident, but the video of his red-faced, angry exit went viral almost instantly. Within hours, it had been clipped, captioned, and turned into a meme on every platform imaginable. In sharp contrast, Karoline Leavitt emerged from the interview not just unscathed, but elevated to a new level of public recognition. For many conservatives, she instantly became a folk hero. Her cool composure, sharp comebacks, and refusal to be intimidated by Hollywood royalty resonated deeply with a broad spectrum of viewers. On social media, support for Leavitt surged. Hashtags like #LeavittDestroysDe Niro, #Hollywood Meltdown, and #SpeakForAmerica began trending across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. People were cutting up clips of her most powerful moments and sharing them with captions like, "This is how you handle Hollywood arrogance," and "One of the most satisfying moments in live TV history." It didn't take long for the internet to do what it does best: remix the moment into pop culture gold. Memes exploded online. In one viral meme, De Niro's frustrated face was photoshopped onto a scene from one of his own gangster movies. This time, instead of intimidating anyone, he was being silenced by a microphone labeled "Truth." Reaction videos flooded YouTube. Some of them came from political commentators, others from random users who simply liked the energy and message Leavitt delivered. TikTok was full of quick edits, parody reenactments, and fan-made remixes. A particularly popular one featured the moment she said, "You don't get to shame millions of hard-working Americans," followed by an explosion effect and dramatic music. Even parody skits began popping up, exaggerating De Niro's exit and turning it into a comedy bit. Of course, not everyone was cheering. Some liberal commentators attempted to downplay the moment, calling it calculated grandstanding, and accusing Leavitt of simply trying to score points with a viral soundbite. Others claimed she was using De Niro as a prop to build her personal brand. But the problem for those critics? The internet wasn't buying it. Even viewers who weren't particularly political said they found her message relatable and her delivery powerful. One apolitical podcast host remarked, "You may not agree with her, but she made a clear, strong case, and that's rare on live TV." What made the moment even more impactful was the timing. America is currently in a cultural and political environment that feels more divided than ever. Many Americans are tired of being told what to think by celebrities who seem detached from the realities of daily life. Leavitt's words tapped into that frustration. She wasn't just debating De Niro. She was speaking on behalf of millions of people who feel unheard, misrepresented, and often insulted by those in positions of wealth and fame. She gave voice to the kind of everyday patriotism that doesn't always make headlines but is deeply felt across the country. Major media outlets soon picked up the story. Some praised Leavitt for holding De Niro accountable and challenging the assumption that Hollywood has all the answers. Others criticized the exchange as a stunt that could deepen partisan divides. One outlet ran a headline reading, "Culture Clash Goes Viral, De Niro vs. Rising Right-Wing Star." Another warned that moments like this, while entertaining, could intensify the culture war and reduce serious political discourse to shouting matches and viral zingers. Still, even the critics couldn't deny the moment's power. It struck a chord, and that kind of cultural moment can't be manufactured, it has to be earned in real time. In the days that followed, Leavitt was invited to appear on several conservative news programs. Her social media following skyrocketed. Interviews, reaction clips, podcasts, you couldn't scroll for more than a few seconds without seeing her face. She didn't gloat. Instead, she stayed on message, saying that she wasn't trying to own anyone, she was simply tired of seeing working Americans mocked and misrepresented. Her message was simple, clear, and deeply resonant. Whether you love her or hate her, one thing is certain. Karoline Leavitt's viral moment with Robert De Niro wasn't just about one exchange on live TV. It was about a shift in cultural momentum. It was about people feeling seen and heard. And it was a reminder that sometimes, the most powerful mic drops come from the least expected places. This wasn't just a viral moment, it was a cultural flashpoint that sent ripples far beyond a single TV segment. It tapped into something deeper, something simmering beneath the surface of American culture and politics. Karoline Leavitt didn't simply win a debate on live television, she gave voice to a growing, frustrated population that feels increasingly alienated by celebrity-driven narratives and elitist lectures. And in doing so, she exposed a raw nerve in today's political conversation. As millions watched the moment unfold, it became clear that this wasn't just about two people on opposite sides of a political spectrum. It was about something larger, about who gets to shape the conversation in America and who gets to speak for the people. For years, Hollywood elites like Robert De Niro have used their platforms to promote personal political views, often painting anyone who disagrees with them as ignorant, bigoted, or dangerous. That formula has worked to some extent, especially with sympathetic media coverage. But in this case, the script was flipped. A young, composed woman calmly and confidently dismantled the idea that celebrity status gives someone moral authority over national discourse. Leavitt wasn't just talking back to De Niro. She was challenging the entire notion that fame equates to truth. She pushed back against the assumption that someone who's made a career in front of a camera automatically understands the political pulse of the country. Her message wasn't laced with anger or insults, it was direct, focused, and grounded in a perspective shared by millions of everyday Americans who are tired of being lectured by people who live in gated communities, fly private jets, and rarely face the consequences of the policies they advocate. For Robert De Niro, the fallout was swift and brutal. His visibly frustrated reaction, angry comments, and dramatic storming off set created an image that will likely follow him for a long time. The internet doesn't forget, and for someone who has spent years cultivating a reputation as tough and principled, the optics of being verbally bested and emotionally triggered on national television are hard to recover from. This could go down as one of the worst PR moments of his career, not just because he lost his cool, but because he came across as exactly what many critics have long accused him of being: out of touch, insulated, and intolerant of any viewpoint but his own. On the flip side, Karoline Leavitt's performance launched her into a whole new level of public awareness. In an era where viral moments often define political careers, this could be her breakout. She's young, articulate, media-savvy, and clearly unafraid to challenge powerful figures. Those are the exact qualities that fuel rapid political ascent in the modern era. For many viewers, especially younger conservatives, she represents the kind of bold, unfiltered voice that feels authentic and necessary. It's not hard to imagine this moment becoming a foundational clip in a future campaign ad. Some political strategists are already speculating that Leavitt may have positioned herself for something bigger: a congressional run, a high-profile media role, or even a major spot in a future presidential administration. But beyond personal trajectories and political calculations, this exchange reminded the country of something rare: the power of unscripted television. In a media landscape dominated by edited soundbites and carefully curated social media posts, live TV remains one of the last arenas where authenticity, both good and bad, can still shine through. You can't fake composure under pressure. You can't rehearse real-time reactions. And when the unexpected happens, people notice. The rawness of this moment, the clash of generations, ideologies, and temperaments, all collided in a way that felt genuine, unpredictable, and even historic. Even for those who didn't agree with Leavitt's politics, there was something undeniably compelling about her ability to hold her ground. In a world where political debates often devolve into screaming matches or talking points, her calm dismantling of a Hollywood legend's argument stood out as rare and refreshing. It reminded people that political courage isn't about yelling the loudest, it's about speaking the truth clearly, even when the room is against you. Ultimately, this wasn't just about politics versus celebrity. It was about authenticity versus performance. Substance versus status. And perhaps most importantly, it was about the realization that America is in the middle of a cultural shift, one where fame no longer guarantees influence, and where real conversations, especially on live TV, still have the power to shock, inspire, and completely flip the script. If you found that as jaw-dropping as we did, don't forget to hit that like button, smash subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a moment like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Whose side are you on? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.